circumstances. But this is something, I believe, a game changer, because this is going to be a system running or capable of running at least for 20 years. And this is also something, a groundwork for a national solar energy industry and related services in the future. This system makes it possible for the first time in the country's life that the health facilities, for example, they will be provided with power, with lighting, and because of that, they would be able to provide patient services on a 24-hour-per-day basis. I do believe the availability of power in certain locations, including some remote locations, will also help significantly the kind of will facilitate the retention of staff working in those areas, because for many professionals, either teachers or healthcare employees, the conditions in some of the locations are very disadvantageous, and that's why you have people leaving their jobs. To be a bit more in details, for example, in schools, the vast majority of which are not electrified, this photovoltaic project will enable establishing broadband internet and related resources that are now only available in selected schools. This is going to be nationwide. So for a Gambian boy, it will not make a difference whether he is in Banjul city center or somewhere upcountry remote, because as far as schooling services and the availability of internet and access to internet is concerned, he will have the same possibility like his peer in the other side of the country or in a bigger city. I don't think I need to mention the advantages of that. On the other hand, in this project, and when this project will be completed, it will also support student e-learning through deployment of tablets, enhancing of e-learning centers for teachers' development needs, as well as support non-formal education for out-of-school youth and non-lettered adults. I do believe this electrification project with this photovoltaic system, electrification of staff quarters, will also foster retention of staff, especially in those remote and disadvantageous areas. In some of the previous questions, rightly so, you asked about the number of beneficiaries, how many youth will be affected, etc. And I think it's keenly important. So let me quote a few things for you from this project. It is estimated that, hold on a second, I want to be very accurate, about 792,000 patients in the country's roughly 100 public health facilities, and about 400,000 pupils and students attending public schools will directly benefit from the project. And this number excludes the hundreds of health facility and school staff working and living in these buildings that will be electrified by this system. Frankly, because I know media was there modestly attending this validation workshop, but I wanted to raise this project here because I don't think anything similar to the scale of this project really ever happened in this country. I also have to add that we are working in a sort of blending mode in this particular project. So it's the European Union, of course, with the government of the Gambia, and of course also the European Investment Bank, all together sponsoring and rolling out this very ambitious project. Rest assured that we will take every opportunity to invite you in any of the events we are going to have along the implementation of this project, because I do believe this will be a game changer in the country. If you have any questions regarding this, shoot. Otherwise, I would just touch upon a few more items, and in the meantime, you can think about your questions perhaps for later. You may recall that after the changes, we had a very high-level visit when Commissioner Mimica came to the country, February 2017, and he announced immediate assistance packages. A total of those two packages, a total of 225 million. And that announcement and development package support, assistance support, was further increased by the successful donor conference we held last May, with additional funding, which is now in a total of 365 million. Which includes everything: European development funds, thematic funds, budget lines, EU trust funds, all kinds of funding sources. We are preparing a kind of midterm, if you wish, revision of where we are. So early next year, when we have the next similar media breakfast, we will come up with a presentation of what is the state of play of the many different projects which are sponsored out of this big number of 365 million, where we are regarding the delivery on the promises, where we are regarding the delivery on the different project assistances. I do believe it will probably be early February when we will have this particular meeting. The reason I mention it now is because as I was reading papers and following different developments in the media, I hear very clearly the strong demand by the population to see what's going on in the country, to see what the government is doing. And from the EU perspective and from the EU side, of course, we are keen on supporting the media to check up on the government, what's happening in the country. And we also feel it's an obligation for us to go very public and to go very transparent as to what we are doing and how we are doing. If you look at the time frame or the calendars, since the changes and then the different announcements by the European Union to support the transition in the country, you also could see certain symbolic events taking place. And in fact, every year there was something significant taking place in this regard. And I think these series of significant events will not come to an end anytime soon. And this is also because we want to make sure that this momentum of the Gambian transition, which is still very attractive around the world, this momentum is maintained. And this momentum also gives certain pressure on all stakeholders to make sure that they do their part of the job, to make sure that these development assistance pledges or promises will come to realization. In this kind of roadmap, if you wish, we have a significant event coming up later this year. In fact, next week, when we will have the visit from the European Parliament. Actually, we will have 5 members of the European Parliament visiting the Gambia next week, and these 5 MEPs are members of the Committee on Development. So, in other words, those folks are coming to the country who are in charge of overseeing what the EU is doing in the world regarding development assistance. I see a great importance, I associate a great importance to this visit because this is also the first in its nature. Such committee members from the European Parliament never visited the Gambia before. And I think it's a good timing in the sense that the transition started, EU assistance were promised and being programmed into the country. And they will come to see some of the examples of these ongoing projects. And of course, they also have bilateral engagements with National Assembly partners, peer-to-peer, as well as with government, president, state house, government ministers, etc. We will also have a short window of opportunity for media engagement towards the end of the visit, before they leave. And this is also, I believe, probably the symbolic expression of growing ties between the Gambian National Assembly and the European Parliament. In the EU intervention in the country, we associate great importance to the fact that we do not only support the government institutions as such, but we also support non-government, non-state actors, be it civil society, be it the judiciary or the National Assembly, whatever the case is, because we want to have a kind of comprehensive approach to supporting the Gambia transition. It's too early to indicate or confirm, but we are thinking and planning to have such important events also in the course of 2019, next year. There is a common planning or thinking about organizing an event sometime 1 year after the donor conference, which practically means maybe May or June. And as I said, it's not yet decided, but could also be a high-level visit whereby a kind of inventory can be taken as to where we are in the Gambia-EU partnership, and then to take stock, like what has been promised, what has been done, what the different parties are doing in terms of fulfilling the promises. At the same time, you all know that the post-Cotonou discussions are rolling out. The European Union, with the ACP partner countries, has started the negotiations, and we will see what will be after 2020, when the Cotonou Agreement comes to an end. Rest assured that from the European Union side, there is a very serious commitment to continue the partnership. And every occasion when an agreement comes to an end, there is an opportunity to see what was going well and what was not going that well. So for whatever a new agreement will be in place, we hope to be able to better tackle the issue and have a better efficiency, bring a better, higher degree of efficiency in terms of the development cooperation. For us, it doesn't make a change or a difference in the sense that the European Union is a staunch partner for the Gambia, and as long as the Gambia remains on the democratic path, as long as this transition and this new Gambia shares the values we share, rest assured that the European Union will be interested in continuing the partnership and delivering assistance to the Gambia for the benefit of the Gambian people. Without too much ado, I would stop here and let's have a kind of more interactive dialogue, if you wish. So any questions you may have regarding the EU-Gambia partnership or any events, please shoot, and I will try to be as responsive as an ambassador could be. So who is first? Lady, please. Yeah.
Mr. Ambassador, you made mention...
Let's be very, because when it comes to figures, we got to be very accurate. Yeah. Maybe I was reading wrongly or not clearly. The 792,000 is a total number of patients in the country's 100 public health facilities who will be positively affected. And this figure was based on an estimation, the calculation was based on the figures of 2017. So this is the number of patients the Gambian health facilities all around the country is treating on an annual basis. That's why we said, since these public health facilities all around the country will have benefit from the project because they will be equipped with a tailor-made photovoltaic solar system, that means that their patient services will increase. Now, this is not centered around a particular geographic area. This is centered around the country, which means each and every public health facility will be a beneficiary regardless of their geographic location. And it's important because there is a huge difference between conditions of health facilities, public health facilities in the Combo or upcountry, whether close to a city or remote. The other figure I quoted was 400,000 pupils and students attending public schools. And again, these are public schools all around the country, and they will each have their own system in place, in-grid or off-grid. One thing perhaps I should add, these facilities, they will have a certain degree of possibility to create a bit more energy than they need. And there will be in the program, in the project, arrangements in a way that the extra power they may generate, what they may not need in the school or in the health facility, clinic, that could be sold in the vicinity for the benefit of the community living nearby. There will be technicalities put in place to make sure that how this is done. But just to underline that with such a possibility, we would also like to increase the feeling of ownership all these communities will have vis-à-vis this system. And now I forget your second question. Oh yes, the development committee visit. All right. Of course, a committee like responsible for EU development as a whole, of course they are interested in seeing projects. That doesn't mean that we are going to show them a movie in this conference room. Rather, we take them up country to visit project sites, to meet with project implementing partners, to meet with beneficiaries, to hear their kind of reflections, their view, their experiences. That is on one hand. But of course, this visit would also give the opportunity for the MEPs to engage with partners, both state actors and non-state actors, government and civil society, international partners, whoever is involved in our project implementation. And of course, they also have an opportunity to engage with their peers, so to say, and that's the National Assembly of the Gambia. After all, they are parliamentarians, so they will have meetings with the speaker, with the committee, the standing committee on overseeing government projects. This is also interesting or important because you may or may not know, earlier this year we had an exchange program whereby National Assembly members from the Gambia and staff of the National Assembly were sent on study tour to Brussels, to the European Parliament. We had actually two groups, a total of almost 30 people in the two different groups, having a study visit to see how the machinery at a National Assembly or European Parliament in that case would work, and what are the possibilities for further collaboration to increase the assistance for the better functioning of the National Assembly here in the Gambia. In that sense, I think this European Parliament visit would also enhance the collaboration between the two institutions, I suppose, for the benefit of the institutions. Thank you. Any other question? Sure. The short question is yes. The European Union is interested in a peaceful and stable country as a partner country, the Gambia. I think peace and stability is what the country needs for the sake of any kind of development. If you don't have peace, you can't talk about development in a sustainable manner. Now, it's quite obvious that such a provision comes with a price. ECOWAS made a political decision. ECOWAS intervened exemplary during the political impasse, during the crisis. They sent the troops in. The intervention force was not sponsored by the European Union. However, when ECOWAS political decision was made to maintain the forces here as long as the security sector reform in the Gambia reaches a stage, so the different security institutions and services are reformed, so then they are capable of fulfilling their mandate, by that time the economic forces should be pulled out of the country. Now, in this interim period, the European Union has been sponsoring the mandate. You rightly quoted, up until end of last August, that particular year, 12-month period, it was in the range of 8-point-something million euro. ECOWAS extended the mandate, and ECOWAS also approached the European Union to further sponsor the mandate and provide the funding. And this is which the European Union very carefully addressed and debated, and finally decided that the European Union is willing to fund the mandate of the economic forces in the country. The upcoming year will be in the tune of 14 million. And I guess you will ask me the question, what made this increase? Trust me, this increase is justified by the number of forces participating in the economic structure. What happened is that up until end of August, there was a certain amount of troops under the economic flag, if you wish. At the same time, there was a certain amount of Senegalese soldiers contributing to the stability in the country based on a bilateral agreement between the Gambia and Senegal. That agreement has got nothing to do with the EU. What happened now is the ECOWAS decision was to integrate the Senegalese soldiers into the economic component. So there will be no more Senegalese soldiers working here on a bilateral basis, but they will become a component, a part of the economic intervention in the country. And that is the reason why the number of, why the figures had to be higher, because we are talking about a larger contingent as economic as compared to the one before. And this is how we envisage that the necessity would be, the funding needs would be in the tune of 14 million. Yes. Let's clarify something. It's not what the EU concluded. This is what ECOWAS concluded. All right? There's a difference, because the European Union is not here to, to impose upon anything. It's an ECOWAS decision, which means ECOWAS member states, which means Gambia included. That was the decision to integrate the Senegalese forces into the economic forces, those Senegalese forces who were here on a bilateral basis. Now, if you ask me details about the bilateral agreement between Gambia and Senegal on that particular issue, I can't really respond to that because I'm not privy to that information, neither to that agreement. What happened is once the ECOWAS decision, political decision was made, and then consequently ECOWAS subsequently ECOWAS approached the European Union to ask for funding assistance. This is what the European Union responded positively. European Union means European member states. In the Council, they debated the issue, and they agreed to provide funding for the new economic mandate. And that's where we are, and that's what we are sponsoring. The new forces will have a concept of operation, which will detail what they are involved in, what they are doing, which also will include component regarding assistance, assistance to the capacity building and reforming of the Gambian security to make sure that at some stage later the Gambian forces will be in position to take full control of the security in the country, and that will be the time when we will talk about the exit strategy for economic forces.
Just a quick question.
Yeah, sorry. One more thing. Let's finish this topic and then. Economic funding is based on a request from the ECOWAS headquarters, and we mobilize the funds via the African Peace Facility. These funds are not available for single individuals. I do believe His Excellency President Barrow is strong because he was elected by the people. And I believe he was made strong because he was elected on the ticket of the coalition. I think that gives the strong constituency to His Excellency the President. I don't see any indication from his side that he wants to use the forces per se. It's not about, we have to see it very clearly. What he referred to was basically how Jammeh used the system and misused the system, which means misusing of office and power. Regarding ECOMIC, the ECOMIC has got a concept of operation which is approved by ECOWAS. And that's the mandate for the troops. So even if the European Union is funding ECOMIC forces here, I don't have the power to pick up the phone and tell the force commander of ECOMIC forces that you do this or that. This is not how it works. And this is because of the political, if you wish, civilian control of the armed forces or military forces. And that's true not only in a national context, but that's also true in a multinational context like ECOWAS intervention in any country. There are ECOWAS interventions in different countries, including one of them in the Gambia. Frankly speaking, when it comes to, because I read lots of reports in the media, and I also read lots of comments regarding this particular sentence. Frankly speaking, I only found one media outlet which sort of reported including the quotation in its almost entirety. Most of the reports and conclusions and feedbacks and reflections were just picking that particular sentence out of the whole context. I think it's always advisable to read the whole statement before jumping to a conclusion regarding one particular sentence of a longer expression. And if you have further questions regarding that, you better approach the State House, because I can't really speak on behalf of the President. The political request from ECOWAS made it very clear what they needed the funding for, as far as a mandate of the economic forces are concerned, and that's what we are funding. Anything else related to this particular issue? Otherwise, we switch.
No, I have a question regarding this
Okay.
massive solar.
Project delivers system in place which will last for 20 years or more. Now, there are differences as to sustainability, because it depends on you talk about the solar panels or you talk about the batteries. Because the solar panels will be there. Some of them will have a validity of 20, 25 years lifetime. And the project will ensure that in the implementation of the project and the running of the systems, there will be a component for maintenance included, which will bring a relief to the communities, so as it will not be a burden on the community to arrange for the maintenance on the long run. Which is because we witnessed in other projects, previous interventions, EU and other interventions, that the maintenance component is a critical issue. Some of the communities may not have the expertise, and during the way may not have the necessary financial funding for making sure that the batteries are replaced in every 5 years or so, whatever the case or the technical solution is. And I hope in this particular regard, the lessons learned from previous interventions will be taken into account when rolling this project out. I think the lady was first and then the gentleman. No.
One more time, can you look at my camera just to
Of course.
confirm to us if the EU has given money to the Gambian government to facilitate this deportation from Gambians?
My answer is no. There's no money given to government. The government didn't take any money for receiving back migrants who wishes to return. Now, there are different capacity building projects going on in this regard. Some of them funded from the European Trust Fund. You have the ITC project, the YEP project, Youth Empowerment Project, which is sponsored from the Trust Fund. And you also have the IOM project, which is also sponsored from the Trust Fund. I mean, in the IOM project, in the past less than 2 years, there were already over 3,700 mainly voluntary returns that took place in the country. It's a huge number. What we are intending to do is also to support the country, not only the state actors, but also non-state actors, to create a way for sustainable reintegration of those voluntary returns. Now, your particular question was also aimed at irregular or illegal migrants returning to the country. Yes, I made it very clear long ago that those who applied for asylum and whose case was refused and the appeal procedure was also exhausted, so there are no more legal ways for them to appeal, those migrants will have to be returned. I mean, the European Union works with the principle of respect for rule of law. If you exhausted all the legal possibilities and you don't have a job there, you don't have a visa, you don't have a status, a legal status, of course it's not sustainable that you stay in the territory of the European Union. Now, we have to differentiate, and in this sense, I certainly invite you to see how are these returnees. if you look at the statistics by the IOM project of those voluntary returns, mainly from Libya, and if you compare them with the so-called returns from Europe, you see the difference in numbers. The number of migrants who were deported from Europe, let me use this expression, are very low numbers. And this is because we are in agreement with the government that we will have to take into consideration what is the absorption capacity of those who wishes to return and what is the absorption capacity of the country in place. We do have return flights every now and then, regularly, and this will continue because the number of irregular, illegal migrants who exhausted all the legal procedures to obtain a status in one or other EU member state is quite huge. You indeed indicated rightly so that probably the most of them are in Germany. Yet the number of such returns are on a manageable scale. And I think that's the importance here, to make sure that when they arrive, we will have mechanism in place to assist their reintegration. We also know that this is an issue of delicate nature, also including communities and affecting communities. Unfortunately, many of the communities are considering these young Gambians as losers, which is not the case. Indeed, they survived a trip which is full of danger, and in fact, the fact that they are still alive is, I think, something we should respect. We also know that these are people who belong to the active capacity of the country as a nation, and these are the people as a workforce who will be the one rebuilding this country. Therefore, I believe the government, rightly so, feels responsible for their well-being, and also feels responsible for, if they wish so, bringing them back and offering them a perspective in the country. You're welcome. Listen, let me avoid being very specific. On the one hand, we are pushing this very heavily because we believe this is a game changer. We believe this will create something which is at this moment unimaginable, very frankly speaking, because of its scope, because of its ambitious objectives. But then there is also lots of technicalities and procedures to follow, and this particular event I was referring to, which was last week, was indeed a precondition, because this was part of the feasibility study, and this environmental and social management framework had to be validated before the preparations are, in that sense, completed. I am not in position to tell you an exact date, like which will be the first month or day when the first installations will get started, but I promise you I will notify all the media partners, because that will be the start of a very shiny road. I hope to be able to start sometime early next year. Yeah. First question from him, so then you get to.
Yes, I just want to take you back, ask you
what you have now. What do you have now? In this part, what do you have now? You don't have anything. I mean, we are facing a serious degree of illegal fishing, undetected illegal fishing, which is no good for anybody, not for the Gambia, not for the European Union, because somebody is fishing without proper assurances that they don't destroy what we have in the waters, what you have in the waters. If I look at what the sector struggles with, I'm living nearby, so the Bacau fishermen is those guys, I see them going out, artisanal fishing. And I see how much they struggle. What is the sectoral support they receive as per now, or before this agreement was concluded? I wouldn't say nothing, but I would say very, 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 very limited. Now, from this perspective itself, it is already a big change that there will be a regularized partnership in this particular field of fishing between European Union member states and the Gambia. Now, for me, the most critical part, again, the fact that by the provisions of this agreement, half of the 50% of what the EU contributes, not the ship owners, but the European Union as such, 50% has to be spent on sectoral support. I think this is also a reassurance for the Gambian fishermen, artisanal fishermen, that they will have benefit coming from the project, coming from the agreement. Now, I mean, I know time to time we have the questions like and critical comments like it is going to kill the Gambian artisanal fisheries and la la la. I mean, if someone reads the lines, it's very clear. By this agreement now, you have the power to take illegal fishing to court. You will have the capacity building for monitoring, better monitoring your waters. There is a very clear line that no EU ships are allowed to do any fishing in this 12-mile zone from the coast. And this is because your artisanal fisherman is in that 12-mile zone. Not to mention that what they are allowed to fish, the type of fish, is the type of fish which is not really fished by the Gambians. So I see in this sense a better regulated situation in this particular sector. I see a lot of benefit. And last but not least, I mean, the sectoral support is going to be decided by Gambians on what to spend it on and how to spend it on. So it's not the European Union telling you you should do this or that or no, it's going to be the ownership is going to be exercised by the Gambian partners.
Yeah,
so
the reason why I'm asking.
not a standalone thing. Gambia was like a missing chain, missing piece of chain in this regard because the European Union has already concluded sustainable fishing agreements with many other countries in the region. And that is because, as the minister highlighted, I mean, the migratory fish, the tuna fish, when vessels and ships are allowed to fish that, they are following the migration. So if they don't have an agreement with one of the countries or some of the countries in the region, that they will run from a legal status into an illegal status when they arrive to the Gambian voters. So for me, it's also important that this time around, this is called sustainable fishing agreement, which also an indication that this is not about fishing, this is about also preserving that we can be fishing and you can be fishing in the future as well.
Yeah, because the argument
Existed in partnership. I think those years when white men came here to impose and do things, those years are gone. If you look at the current number of member states, most of them never had colonies. So, I mean, I know the old reflexes, and I know I can't change the color of my skin, but European Union is not interested in exploiting. European Union is interested in win-win agreements, because if it is only about exploitation, it is not sustainable. We could see history. Things were not sustainable the way they were done. Time has changed. I also believe, because the agreement itself is not the only tool via which the European Union could contribute to sectoral support in the country. We also have regional-based project, the PESCAO project, whereby we also try to enhance capacities, like for the region as a whole, because you can't separate Gambian voters from Senegalese voters, from Bissau Guinean voters. I mean, it's the same ocean. Of course, you have the boundaries, but it's the same ocean. Like fight against illegal fishing is not a Gambian thing. It's a capacity building. We are also sponsoring on a regional level. This PESCAO project actually enhances that, and in fact there is in the Banjul port there is a unit of this project to support the fight against illegal fishing in the whole region. Frankly speaking, what I feel is also an extremely important element of the agreement, although it doesn't give you a figure like money, but now it's a regulated situation. What has happened so far? Any kind of ship could come here and do some fishing, illegal of course, unreported, not even detected. And that's no good, because that potentially do more harm than gain. It doesn't matter whether it was EU ship or it was Chinese or whatever nationality. The point is that because the capacities on the ground are inadequate, they could do whatever they wanted. Again, I'm not here to, accuse these ship owners, but we all know for a fact, you guys reported in the media, that there were such activities going on. And this is, I think, what this agreement will also help building up a capacity against. Because, I mean, if we really talk about a sustainable way of exploiting whatever we have in our nature, in our world, in our planet, we got to do it in a very serious manner to make sure that we have mechanism built in. Because, I mean, ship owners, this is business for them. They fish, they sell, and they have to have their profit, which is all right. But it got to be regulated that it takes place in a manner which will not kill the resources we have. I do believe this agreement helps in that regard. And, well, I myself, I always wanted to encourage the Gambian partners in the government or outside the government to exercise ownership. Now, when you conclude an agreement, with the same effort, you can also terminate an agreement should you feel like it's not something you can benefit from. And that's important to know, because it's not something imposed upon the Gambia. No, it was actually something initiated by the Gambia to conclude this, because by concluding it, we would have a regulated situation, there would be a certain income for the country, there would be a lot of capacity building for the country. So all in all, it's in the advantage of the sector.
I don't tend to be really close on this question, but many Gambians are waiting, when will the aeroplane bring the 1.45 billion that was pledged at the Donald conference? Because this is what the president said, that once this money gets into the country, even the dogs and the cats will be aware that there's money in the country.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a brave statement. There will never be a plane, neither anybody bringing a big box of money like that. Countries, quite a good number of countries around the world, expressed their support for the Gambia, also in terms of financial support. They made pledges, and it's really up for the government to make sure that these pledges are eventually programmed and implemented and brought into the country. It may not come as a bucket of cash. It may come in a sort of support, project, assistance, whatever the case is. Some of these pledges may come as cash. If I just remind you, for example, the budgetary support the EU is making for the Gambia, that is the only cash component in the EU pledge, for example. So if you look at, and let me just talk about the European Union, because other countries made pledges, it's not my business. So this 1.45 billion euro worth total of pledges coming from many different countries. Now, a significant component in it, 365 million, which is like what? Almost a bit down, almost like 1/3, right, of the total, comes from the European Union, and that amount includes project interventions, assistance in that way, and also includes roughly 30% of the total EU pledge, in the range of 130, 140 million, which is called budgetary support. And this budgetary support is going to be disbursed in different installments, I mean annual installments, based on a so-called state resilience building contract, which means if the government achieves something in this contract, certain benchmarks we establish mutually, then the disbursement will take place. Now, the first disbursement of this budgetary support was done last year in August, 2017, 30 million euro. This year we are working very actively to complete all the necessary formalities to do the disbursement of the next 25 million. There will be another package of 25 million sometime towards the end of next year, 2019, and we also foresee another block of such a state building contract with budgetary support disbursement in the following year. In total, it will be somewhere in the range of 130 million. That's really cash, but not coming in a basket in an airplane, but transfer from treasury to treasury to support the national budget of the Gambia. Other than that, these are all project interventions, because this is the basis on which the European Union is basically implementing, delivering development assistance to partner countries. This, for example, this photovoltaic which in total we have the figure of, I think it's in the range of 100 million, but it's European Union and European Investment Bank jointly. That is part of this 365 million pledge. So the reason we can connect all schools and health centers in the country is because in this EU pledge we have a component about sustainable energy. And that's the component and project we are going to bring in and actually deliver it for the benefit of the Gambian communities.
Okay, well, are there any strings tied to these pledges that once those conditions are not fulfilled, the European Union can withhold the money?
Of course. I mean, don't forget, this money is not European Union money. It's European Union member state taxpayers' money.
Yes.
It comes from taxes. And preconditions and strings, if you wish, yes, of course. If Gambia is a country in transition remaining on the democratic path, that's for us a good assurance that we can deliver development support. In other words, you start diverting from this track, going towards dictatorship like it was before, trust me, the money will be suspended. Because, I mean, the European Union is based on certain principles and standards. There are certain principles we share with our partners. If a country don't share the principle of respect for rule of law, human rights, etc., we are not really interested in a partnership with that country because we don't really cooperate with dictatorships. Now, this is not the case in the Gambia. Gambia is moving. There might be certain incidents, if you wish, but basically the Gambia is still on the right track. Could it move faster? Of course. But at least it's moving in the right direction. And as long as that remains the name of the game, the European Union is interested in delivering assistance, of course, and in a partnership manner. Please. That's what I said.
No,
that's what the coalition said.
Yes, that's what the coalition said. So
Thank you for your question, but let's clarify. The EU is not supporting an individual. The EU is not supporting a minister or a president. The EU is supporting the Gambia and its successful transition. Now, what we accepted is what happened. There was a coalition established with a coalition candidate who became the president of the country, and there is a coalition government still. Even if some of the coalition partners, or coalition party members, may or may not be in the cabinet anymore. But this is a Gambian internal issue. There should be no EU ambassador, neither EU member state ambassador, intervening with that internal government politics. If the coalition decides this way or that way, it's their decision. What's really important for us from a European perspective is that the country transition, whoever is in government, remains a democratic government. Respect for rule of law, human rights, etc., etc. As long as that is the case, we have a partner to work with. For me, with all due respect, it doesn't matter whether this or that is the largest party in the government, this or that political party is establishing a government, as long as the election is transparent and free and people can really participate in a level playing field. From that perspective, it's a Gambian internal issue whether the Gambia will decide to have a transition government for 3 years or 5 years. We all know the anomaly coming from the fact that the coalition gentleman agreement, if you wish, speculated 3 years, whereas your existing constitution talks about 5 years. How do you resolve that problem? Frankly speaking, I may have my own ideas, I may even have some suggestions, but it's basically up to the Gambian side to decide. They may say 3 years, they may say 5 years, whatever it is. It's not for me, not for the European Union to judge.
So the EU is not interested in...
Of course we are interested. I mean, if we were not interested, we wouldn't be here. We are interested in a successful transition, a democratic transition of this country for the benefit of its people. But then again, in this game, everybody has got his or her role to play. And this issue, 3 versus 5 year, is not really my issue. I'm not ruling this country. You have a coalition government to decide how do they go about it. So I really feel a bit kind of inconvenient to talk about that, because this is not my issue. This is not within my responsibility, and I should not intervene in that sense with an independent country. Let me just say that those years are gone.
Yes.
Right?
Mr. Ambassador, before I take a leave of you, based on this agreement, the new
Which agreement?
protocol, with the fishing agreement.
Ah, okay, so we are back to the fishing. All right.
The new protocol will enter into force when the necessary legislative procedure for its conclusion, which means it has to go to Parliament.
Yes.
Now, in the advent that Parliament reject this, will this affect the EU relationship with the Gambia?
In the sense, yes, that there would be no fisheries agreement entering into force. That's quite obvious. But I mean, listen, we are talking about 2 sovereign parties. No one can force upon the other anything. I mean, that's all about partnership, isn't it? So, in that sense, it will affect, because then there will be no sectoral support sponsored from the European Union coming in that regard, because the agreement may not enter into force if it is rejected by the Parliament. But it will not stop the EU-Gambia partnership, because we have many other fields we collaborate very closely. I mean, we have many other issues we both are interested in tackling and managing. So it's not going to be the end of the world. On the other hand, I cannot really predict what's going to happen in the National Assembly. So you better ask the Honourable Minister.
No, this question is directed to you as the ambassador.
Yeah.
Because you have a good relationship, EU have a good relationship with the Gambian government.
Absolutely.
And then, it should be reciprocal. Now, in the advent that, this happens to collapse at the National Assembly level, I have to find out if it is going to affect your relationship and collaboration with the Gambian government.
The question you are asking is a difficult question, because, I'm not a future teller. What I see is that we have a partnership. It's like a piece of cake, okay? And then you have different slices of the cake. One of the slices, and I leave it up to you to decide whether it's a big size or a small size of a slice of a cake, is this sustainable fishing agreement. Now, if it doesn't work out because it will not be approved by the National Assembly, then that's it. But we still have the rest of the cake. Yeah. You know what I mean? We were without this agreement for the past, 20 plus years. Neither the Gambia nor the European Union stopped existing because there was no bilateral sustainable fishing agreement. I do believe it would be a loss for the country more than for the European Union for not having this agreement in place. But that's my perspective. On the other hand, National Assembly and your members, your representatives at the National Assembly will discuss this issue, and they will make a judgment as to whether it is in favor of the country, in advantage for the country or not, based on which then they will either adopt this or not. And I respect that, because this is how democracy works. I mean, it's the same like when you ask a question like, are we happy about the Brexit? No, we are not happy about the Brexit. But again, there was a member state decision. People decided, and there are consequences of that. It's like in the Gambia, 2016, Gambia decided, and there are consequences of that. So again, this is not going to be the end of the world, but I do believe it would be not in the interest of the country's development not having this agreement in place.
Yeah, because the attempt in Bissau, the EU attempt to Bissau failed, but later it was renegotiated, and then, Bissau granted the EU and agree on this agreement. That's why I'm asking this question, because we, the Gambian people, our National Assembly, might have that perspective in them that once we disagree with this agreement, probably it will affect our relationship with EU. Some of them might have that mentality. That's why I'm asking this question, that whether it is going to further affect your relationship with the Gambia.
Well, I do believe as long as you can debate issues with your partner, then it's already a good thing. I mean, the worst would be if there was no space, no room for debate.
Because we had a National Assembly member saying that, this agreement should be scrapped.
Of course, and there should be always opposition in the National Assembly. If a National Assembly becomes a kind of rubber stamp machine, like it was during Jammeh's time, with all due respect, I don't think then they serve their purpose, their mandate. I personally believe debate is healthy. And like anything else in politics, when it comes to playing the game of democracy, it is a decision by the majority. And you may have one, two, I don't know how many, in favor or not in favor. At the end of the day, when they do the voting, we will see the outcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let me ask you,
Yeah.
in the area of public support among others, specifically, was everything that was promised for 2017 delivered? If yes, average Gambians, the average Gambians, what they believe in this, after hearing all these millions from EU and things like that, we are not seeing anything, any direct change in our day-to-day life. Was everything delivered? If yes,
Yeah.
People who are saying...
Let's clarify. It's not that we have a pledge for 2017 and 2018 individually or separately. We had a package of pledges, project proposals, which needs to be programmed and then implemented. So you will have projects which started in 2017 or 18 or going to start next year. Rest assured that what we pledged is being implemented or programmed in the country. Now, when it comes to not seeing any results, well, it depends on how you look at it. There will be no single Gambian who would feel the impact of all the projects in himself or herself. If you talk to lactating mothers in some of the upcountry villages and communities, they will tell you that they receive monthly assistance in order to make sure that the nutrition and food security aspect of the baby is of a certain quality. If you, with all due respect, if you look at what many of the UN agencies are doing, because in this particular breast project we are working closely with UNICEF, I mean, last year we brought in an additional 4 UN agencies to implement projects the EU is sponsoring. So, and that's when we started this meeting today, I also mentioned or this discussion, I also mentioned that we will come up with a kind of portraying of where we are, what is the state of play of the many different project interventions, which if you add up all together, you will reach the figure of 365 million, where we are in the implementation of these pledges. That's what I meant when I mentioned that sometime early February, we will have a comprehensive picture of what was promised by the EU and what has been delivered. There you will see, like, how would a Gambian feel the result of a study tour by the National Assembly members and staff they paid to Brussels, to the European Parliament. Will that an average Gambian feel? Not directly. They will feel only if the National Assembly is working more efficiently, the National Assembly members doing their job better. If you look at the bridge, Trans-Gambia Bridge, where the EU is also providing support to have a full completion of the bridge, not only the bridge itself and the ramp, but also the connecting roads to the border points. Because without the connecting roads, this whole thing will break, because the roads are not equipped, not designed and built for the heavy traffic they're going to have once the bridge is fully opened. Will that be an impact an average Gambian would feel in Basse or Banjul? Surely not directly, but indirectly yes, because I mean the Trans-Gambia Bridge will be a game changer in the country in terms of economy and trade. Interventions like sponsoring the economic forces in the country. Will a farmer in, I don't know, Badibu feel the impact of that? 14 million euro. No, he will not feel it directly, but indirectly, yes, because there will be peace in the country. There will be stability in the country, so he or she can go about her business. So there are projects which may not directly impact upon individuals, but there is a good number of other projects when there is an impact and there is a benefit they can feel about. I mean, if we complete this photovoltaic project, you're going to be busy for a year if you want to interview all 792,000 patients who benefit from the electrified health facility. So that's why I said the question is difficult, and let us have you this, give you this kind of overview of where we are in the implementation, because these projects, due to the financing mechanism in the European Union, we are in the 11th EDF cycle, which means we got to complete that in 3 years, starting last year, programmation and launching it. Of course, some of the projects may last a bit longer until they finished, but rest assured that that's what my staff is working very, very hard on, to make sure that all these are put in place and rolled out.
They are in a haze. But
It's not fully funded by, no. We wanted to contribute to the full completion of the Trans-Gambia corridor. And that's why I said in that corridor you have at least 3 important components. The bridge itself, which is over the river. The 2 ramp, because the 2 ramp, they are built on a how you call it, sorry for my, the ground, the river bank, is not a hard surface. So building the ramp is technically a challenging task. You have to make it reinforced because this is a soft ground, a wet land, basically. And the 3rd component is the connecting road from the bridge ramps to the border crossing.
To the 2 borders.
To the 2 borders, north and south. Yeah. If those roads are not sufficiently constructed to bear the heavy traffic, don't forget you will have huge trucks. This is a regional corridor. Yeah. So if you have a simple road like what you have now, that road will collapse, break, which will have, of course, negative effect on the transportation, on the vehicles, on everybody, on business. So what is important that this whole Trans-Gambia corridor is up for the traffic it's going to have. And the European Union is chipping into the component of this road reinforcement to make sure that this is properly done, so it will stand the test of time and the test of the heavy traffic. It's in the range of 16 million. Yeah. Now, when it comes to inauguration of the bridge, when it comes to completion of the entire corridor, that may be 2 different dates. Because the bridge is already ready, right? It's connected, you can see it. But of course, it's not yet ready for traffic. And they may inaugurate the bridge, but like for entirely open access to all traffic, from the border crossing till the border crossing, that date of inauguration may be at a later date next year, not necessarily early next year. You're welcome. Thank you very much for your availability.